I'm delighted to be a part of this seminar. My topic is Christian-Muslim encounters in the context of marriage-related kinship ties in Ghana. And this topic is going to be treated among the Fanti people. So I have conducted some research, which is still ongoing, among the Fanti people of Ghana. And so I'd like to share this topics in this research with you. It's still an ongoing research, and I hope that your input will help me to build it up for publications. The Fanti people of Ghana occupies the coastal region of Ghana, spanning from the capital, Accra, to the Sekondi Takoradi to the west. The Fantis are organized along the extended families in three main kinship systems. Most of the Fanti people are converts to Christianity, which means most of them are Christians, but a sizable number of them are Muslims. Population of Muslim in the central region where the Fantis live is around 190,000 people, according to the population census 2010. Among the Fanti Muslim community, the Ahmadiyya Muslim movement is the largest group, having been established by the two Fanti Methodist converts to Islam, Benjamin Sam, a former catechist, and Mahdi Apa in 1885 at Ekumfi Ikrofonia, Mankasim. One of the customary practices which continue to impact on the Fanti people, be they Christian and Muslim, is the indigenous marriage practices. The indigenous marriage ceremonies and customs are accepted by both Muslim and Christian traditions as the necessary first step towards Christian and Muslim marriages. It is significant to note that most Christian-Muslim marriages could be found within the context of indigenous customary marriage. Now let us look at the sampling and methodology used. We adopted the random sampling technique in this study. Muslim Christian couples were targeted. In fact, 25 so far have been engaged. Then Muslim Christian marriage related kings, also 25 so far. 4 towns are used in this study: Mankasim, Gomoa Kokofu, Gomoa German, Gomoa Asan. They were selected based on the significant number of Muslims and Christians there. One-on-one interviews were conducted. Now, research questions to Christian Muslim couples. A number of questions were put them. Some of them I've listed here. Do you receive support from marriage-related kings? What support do you receive from families? What are some of the challenges you encounter with kin members? How are you treated by kin group members? Do your family accept your marriage? How would you describe your relationship with your marriage-related kin? Then 2 questions to Christian Muslim kings. Do you accept Christian Muslim marriage? Do you have family members who are married to a Christian or Muslim? Do you support the relative who is married to a Christian or Muslim? What support do you give to the couple? How would you describe your relations with the couple? These are some of the questions we put them, and they responded appropriately. Now let us do some introduction or give some introduction to Christian Muslim marriage, at least generally. A marriage of a Christian and a Muslim is also referred to as marriage of disparity of cults. It is expected to be the ideal model for Christian-Muslim relations because it inevitably brings 2 great traditions of faith together in a covenant marriage. It also attempts to reconcile the teachings of marriage, divorce, separation, annulment, and even inheritance. It is Christian-Muslim relations in an extraordinary way. In fact, Christian-Muslim marriage is a mixed marriage and is considered an extraordinary in both Christianity and Islam. And extraordinary here means that it is not the ordinary marriage. Now, in the Catholic Church and in almost all Christian churches, a mixed marriage takes place between a baptized Catholic and a non-baptized, that is the Muslim partner, and is considered ordinarily invalid and non-sacramental. Likewise, Islamic law places a temporary ban on mixed marriages to the effect that a Muslim woman may not marry a non-Muslim man, but a Muslim man may marry a non-Muslim woman so long as she comes from a religion having revealed scripture, for example, Judaism and Christianity. Now, there are three types of marriages in Ghana, or three types of marriages are recognized by Ghanaian law. The first one is the customary marriage, the second, the Mohammedan marriage, and the third, the ordinance marriage. And here I include Christian marriage. This is because Christian marriage will not take place without the ordinance marriage. And so I like to attach it to the ordinance marriage. Now let us go straight to talk about Christian-Muslim marriage. In fact, this also could be seen, there are two types of these marriages. The Christian-Muslim marriages are of two types. The first one is Christian-Muslim official marriage and Christian-Muslim unofficial marriage. That is the Christian-Muslim official marriage and the Christian-Muslim unofficial marriage. So I would like to take them one by one and try to give some short explanation to them. Now, the Christian-Muslim official marriages. This is a marriage between a Muslim and a Christian. It is officiated by a religious leader, such as a pastor or a reverend or a priest, or an imam on behalf of their religious tradition. For example, a Christian and a Muslim marry in the church under the regulations of Christian marriage. That is Christian-Muslim official marriage. Then you have also, for example, a Muslim and a Christian marry under the Mohammedan law, which will also be Christian-Muslim official marriage, which means they are officiated under the Christian or Mohammedan law. In such marriages, the couple have satisfied the conditions set in place by Christian denomination and Muslim sect, which justify a dispensation for mixed marriages. Now let us look at the conditions for dispensation of impediments. In a Christian church or Christian denomination, the Muslim partner has to make two promises. The Catholic partner or the Christian partner that the Christian partner will not face any difficulty in practicing their faith, which means that the Christian will continue to practice his or her Christian faith accordingly. Then the next promise is that the children of the marriage may be brought up as Catholics or as Christians. And so these two promises the Muslim partner will have to make to the leadership of the church. Then the Muslim sects also, for them, religious compatibility seems to be a major reason for the impediment in Islam. But it is not an absolute condition that could be of the same, that the couple be of the same religion, according to Abdul Ati, 1977. The Christian partner, according to in Islam, would have to dispel the fear that the Muslim would not eventually renounce their faith when they marry a non-Muslim or a Christian. And the second point is that the faith of the children of mixed marriages is also of concern to Muslim scholars. In all, the children born in mixed marriages in Islam must be raised as Muslims. Clearly, these are matters which might have been discussed fully with both partners before the marriage ceremony in the church or in the mosque, so that understanding may be avoided, misunderstanding may be avoided, and possible conflict prevented. Now let us look at the Christian-Muslim unofficial marriage. This marriage also involves a Muslim and a Christian. It takes place under customary marriage law of Ghana, 1985. And in fact, PNDC law 112. This marriage, that is the Christian unofficial marriage, constitutes about 85% of Christian Muslim marriages among the Fantis. It constitutes about 85% of the Christian Muslim marriages among the Fantis. The Christian and the Muslim partners in this marriage decide to marry under the customary law of Ghana. So that under the customary marriage law of Ghana. This marriage cannot be said to be officially Christian-Muslim marriage because they do not marry under Christian regulation and they do not marry also under Islamic law. They choose to marry under the customary marriage law. The marriage is arranged according to the dictates of indigenous or customary laws of the Fantis. They are customary and so are guided by the customs and traditions. And so the couples remain Christians and Muslims and often are regular members in their respective communities or religious communities. But their marriages are not recognized by their religious communities. The Christian community, particularly the Catholic Church, treats the customary marriage as the first stage of the holy matrimony. So the customary marriage of Christians or Christians and Muslims are not completely looked down upon, but they are considered the first stage in the process of marrying in the church by the Christian community. But this is just the first stage. They have to move on to register the marriage in the district assembly, and then the holy matrimony, or it will be officiated in the church. They are also able to, in this case, as they marry outside the church and the mosque, they are able to avoid the demands of the temporary impediment put in place by their religious tradition. So there is some advantages in that. When they marry according to the customary law, which is the first stage of these, the Mohammedan and the Christian marriages, they are able to avoid the conditions or the demands of the temporary impediments. And so many people opt for that. They are able to also escape the conditions that the impediments present or entail. So they don't need to promise anybody that the partner will remain in their previous, in their churches or mosques. And they do not also have to promise that the children will be raised either in Christianity or in Islam. So they avoid all that. It is thus inconvenient to say that such marriages are permitted, but not encouraged by both religions in the communities. Indigenous society also permits and facilitates such marriages. So even though it is not recognized by the religious groups, but the society, the indigenous society, permits and facilitates such marriages. In other words, the Fanti society traditionally, in the Fanti society, traditionally, religious background is not a prerequisite for marriage. When you are involved in that, in the ceremony, they do not ask you your religious background or whether you are Muslim or Christian. It is mainly according to custom, and there are prerequisites, but the religion of the partners, they are not interested in that. Customary marriage under the Christian-Muslim marriages, be it official or unofficial, take place, offers, and when it takes place, offers some kinship implication for Christian-Muslim encounters. So this customary marriage, which takes place in both official and unofficial, has some kinship implications which Christian-Muslim encounters has to deal with. Now let us look at kinship system in the Fantiland. A kinship is an extended family system, and it is an organized group of close relatives which expands to the third or fourth generation of descendants. It is often by descent established by Moja blood relations. Typical kinship groupings are of two kinds: the matrilineal and patrilineal kinships by descent. And so, for example, the matrilineal kinship system involves a group of organized individuals, male or female, who are descended through the female line only from a common ancestress, sometimes putative. Then the Fantis also ascribe to the kinship by patrilineal descent, which generally plays second fiddle to kinship by matrilineal descent. The patrilineal system is made up of all persons, male or female, who are descended through the male line. Now, apart from these two kinship systems, the matrilineal and the patrilineal system, which people are organized around, there is also kinship by marriage, which our research want to focus on. Besides kinship by descent, there is also kinship as a result of marriage. A Fanti marriage is a contract, social contrast, meant mainly to bring families together. It is more or less an alliance between four families, of which the spouses are only representatives. Marriage is most importantly a social contract between families. This is true of all Akan ethnic groups, including the Fanti. In Yote and Kweye case, the High Court judge noted the difference between the English and the customary law in Ghana by saying, and I quote, "Now, one particular characteristic of our system of marriage in Europe and other places is that it is not just a union of this man and this woman, it is a union of the family of this man and the family of this woman." Ghana Law Report 573. Also, Ecco Daniels' definition of customary law marriage also mentions this affiliation that is created between the two families or the four families of the couples. And he says that the marriage is the union or a contract between a man and a woman to live as husband and wife, during which period there arises an alliance between the two family groups based on a common interest in the marriage and its continuance. Daniels, 1964. Among the Fantis now, an individual marries not just their spouse, but also their family. The family members of your spouse automatically become your kin relatives in a highly recognized and reputable social linkage referred to as affin relation. It's 14 hours. Or marriage-related kinship. By this relationship of affinity, the families of the spouses and the children from the marriage become real kin of the two families. This type of kinship is the focus of this paper. Now let us look at kinship as a system and social change in contemporary Ghanaian society. The kinship system and its relevance to modern life have received quite a lot of attention in recent socio-cultural studies by prominent Ghanaian scholars and social commentators. Buzia, the former prime minister, have considered the kinship ideals hardly incongruous with life in a large, heterogeneous, competitive society. such as the modern Ghanaian society. But according to Nukunya, he has admitted to the diminishing significance of kinship, but nevertheless has disagreed with Busia that kinship structure is incompatible with modern urban life. To Nukunya, the kinship institutions have not completely disappeared, even in the changing Ghanaian life. Trimingham in 1968 also observed that the change brought about by Islam and Christianity, for that matter, and even modernity in tropical Africa, should not be exaggerated. The old basis of community remained paramount, and the ideal of the unity of believers a superimposed linkage. Asimen, 1981, also noted that though urbanization and modernization bring people without blood or African relationships together in voluntary associations, the eventual interaction is ephemeral, temporary, and without much emotional investment. All these scholars are trying to say that, yes, the kinship system is still being practiced by Fantes or Ghanaians or Akans, whether Christian or not, or Muslim. So now let us look at marriage-related kinship and Christian-Muslim encounters. Christian-Muslim marriage, whether official or unofficial, does not only establish a bond between the spouses, but also their families and lineages. The marriage-related connectivity is raised to the status of kin or external family level among the Fanti people as kin relationship and is treated as such. Thus, marriage-related Muslim and Christian relatives are treated as true kin, even though they are not blood related. Among the Fanti, a person's in-laws are not just the parents of his or her spouse, but include the entire membership of their family. A Christian-Muslim marriage brings four families or family groups into affinal union or marriage-related union, two Muslim families and then two Christian families. The marriage-related kinship that results from Christian-Muslim marriage does not only emerge out of interreligious marriage, such as Christian-Muslim marriage, it also among the Fantes often comes out of intra-religious marriages, like Muslim-Muslim marriage and Christian-Christian marriage. Thus, there's hardly any marriage among the Fanti people that, realistically speaking, that does not bring Muslims and Christians in marriage-related kinship. This mixed marriage, considered the ideal interreligious encounter, sets in motion ideal Christian-Muslim relations at the level of the family in the spirit of dialogue of life. And I quote Dialogue and Proclamation of the Catholic Church 42. Now let us look at the opportunity of this marriage-related kinship for peaceful coexistence between Christians and Muslims. This kinship tie enables Muslims and Christians to live comfortably together, either in a compound house, often built by their grandparents, or in the same vicinity. Christians and Muslims are obligated by common customary laws to relate to one another at the personal level. They at times share rooms and meals. They are united as relatives at home and only separated on Fridays and Sundays in the mosque and the churches, respectively. Christians and Muslims in marriage-related kinship may argue, quarrel, or even fight over religious differences as to whether or not, for example, Muhammad is a prophet, and Jesus is God, but they are always united by virtue of their affin kinship or marriage-related kinship. Christians and Muslims coexist, not so much because their various religious traditions encourage them to, but for their affinity connectivity. Associations based on religion, in this case, play second fiddle to those based on relationship of affinity or kinships. When Christians and Muslims are as close as the affin association brings them, or marital association brings them, and for that matter, true kin relatives, the rampant wild characterization of each other without any justifiable evidence would be given a stricter scrutiny. The Christian Fanti would readily reject the wild claim that Muslims are terrorists, evil, and violent when they have Muslim relatives who are not, and vice versa. Now let us look at obligations, rights and obligations that the marriage-related kinship bring. The marriage-related kinship, like the other external family kinships, also stipulates rights and obligations for all individuals involved. That is according to Hagen. The rights and obligations are expressed in mutual helpfulness and cooperation. The individual is obligated by rules of marriage-related kinship to give and receive support and assistance to the kin to the best of their ability. Religious affiliation does not prevent a person from executing their duties to a kin member as demanded by customs. Though he is a Christian, his Muslim maternal uncle administered the indigenous naming ceremony of his child. Though he is a Muslim, his Christian uncle paid for his school fees and even accepted the traditional drinks and officiated the traditional wedding accepted by both Christians and Muslims as a necessary first step to holy matrimony. And here I quote Professor Azuma has written extensively on this. Now let us look at the challenges of Christian-Muslim marriages. Consequently, the issue of Christian-Muslim marriages or marriage should not be reduced to whether or not a dispensation will be granted to the couple by the local leadership of the religious traditions. There are liturgical challenges or liturgical issues which have to be addressed. Now the question is, which of the liturgical rites will be used, Christian or Muslim? Is Islamic rite accepted by the Christian community as valid? Or is the Christian rite accepted as valid by the Muslim community? In fact, this liturgical challenge could be one of the reasons the couples mostly settle on the customary marriage, because there you wouldn't have to go through the Christian or the Muslim liturgy. Then there are also pastoral challenges. Constant support and encouragement needed or are needed from the Christian community or Muslim community, just as in all marriages. The question is, to what extent can the Christian aid go to the couple in order not to make the Muslim party feel their religious rights being infringed upon? There is also the need for sufficient formation needed for Christian-Muslim marriages, whether even official or unofficial. And also there are divergent teachings on marriage from Christian and Islamic perspective, which need to be addressed. There is also adequate instruction needed on polygyny and divorce, which is essential and is highly recommended, especially when indigenous society permits such marriages. We should also look at kin-related challenges for Christian-Muslim marriages. It is not always the case that Christian-Muslim marriage is able to bridge the differences between the families, or is even able to bring the families of the couples together. Cooperation or acceptance is often difficult among the marriage-related kins, which often spills over into the marriage. Mutual helpfulness is often lacking. Some of the marriages are also left hanging. Whether it's going on or not is difficult to tell. Whether there is marriage or not is very difficult to indicate in some cases. Divorce rate is also noted to be higher among Christian Muslim marriages. We should also raise the issue of the faith of the children involved. To what religion or religious tradition would they belong? And many a time these became issues for the couple and the marriage-related kings, which sometimes bring a lot of misunderstanding and confusion in Christian-Muslim relations. So, dear friends, this is where I would like to end my presentation. We have treated Christian-Muslim relations and Christian-Muslim marriages in the context of marriage-related kings. And in this way, we have identified Christian-Muslim relations and Christian-Muslim marriages, which are official and administered in churches and mosques. And then we have, importantly, Christian-Muslim marriages under the customary marriage law, which has nothing to do, does not bring in the regulations of church and regulations of the mosque. And also we have dealt with the kinship issues in Ghana and narrowed into the kinship by marriage. And in the kinship by marriage, even in Christian marriage and Muslim marriage, the two families or the four families are meant to come together in union. And in fact, that is given a big priority. Then we have also looked at what are these challenges for Christian-Muslim marriages, and we haven't finished the research, so we are still reflecting and we are still going into them to talk to them to find out the conclusions later. Thank you very much.